So today we're going to explore some of the basics of how you can streamline what you already do and enhance your work with the generative AI process. Let me see, I have to share. Okay. Can you guys see the screen now?
Yep.
Is it up? Thank you. All right, so at the end of today's session, we're going to cover 5 key areas: understanding Gen AI's role in backward design, evaluating Gen AI as a thought partner, how we can apply it to the ADDIE and SAM frameworks, practical strategies, and then also addressing ethical considerations along the way. So my goal is to give you actionable tools to enhance your course design processes. Okay, so I have here this. If you're following along in the Canva Live, you can respond to this. If not, you can respond in the chat. What is your experience with generative AI? What's your current comfort level? Do you design with it a lot? Never used it? Daily user? Where you guys fall? If you're not following along in the live, you can just put your answers right there in the chat.
I think the chat was disabled. I have just enabled it for everybody.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I will also then repost yeah.
I've done it.
Daily, never. Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Thank you guys. Yeah, so I see a lot of people who have tried it and perhaps are a little bit nervous about how to proceed, but today we're going to jump right in and hopefully you'll be as amazed as I was when I first started using it. All right, so let's briefly look at the journey of generative AI. In the 1950s, it was really just, a theoretical dream, but now we have just a host of sophisticated applications and it's evolved dramatically. So it's been particularly accelerated by the advances in machine learning and deep learning. And so it becomes really relevant to us as educational designers. So understanding how AI works is important so that we can use it effectively. At its root, AI processes vast amounts of data, identifies patterns, and makes decisions based on those patterns. So the LLMs, the large language models that we will use today, things like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, they use a predictive text feature where the next word or string of words is predicted based on the previous pattern of words that was provided. So for it to be able to do this, obviously it had to be trained on just a vast amount of information. So we're seeing generative AI transforming many, many sectors. Healthcare, you can go online and try to diagnose yourself. I don't recommend it, but you still can. You can. Finance, we've got different types of fraud detection now, and I'm sure we have all interacted with a customer service chatbot, right? So anytime I have to return something to Amazon, I'm talking with their chatbot. But today we're going to focus on what it is doing for education, how it's revolutionizing our planning and our implementations. I think one of the concerns I hear the most often is that generative AI is going to take our jobs, or that generative AI doesn't work like a human would work, so we shouldn't use it. But really, there is a key to successful integration, and that key is finding the balance between human expertise and AI capabilities. So for example, AI has really good at things like rapid content generation, content organization, scalable solution, data analysis, really good, really fast, within seconds. Whereas we human experts, we're crucial for things like emotional intelligence, cultural sensitivity, ethical judgment. All of those things cannot be done by AI. So the sweet spot lies right there in the middle. So things like content development and curriculum planning can be enriched by the use of generative AI, and then in addition to our human expertise. If you guys have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat or raise your hand, and if I don't see you, maybe the group can point them out to me.
Yes, just keep posting your questions. You can put them in chat. You can put them in the Q&A section. Anywhere is fine.
Yep.
And we'll keep picking them up.
Thank you. All right. So what are the benefits of using AI in design? I have a lot of people who approach me like, oh, but I like the processes I have. You know, you can use whatever processes you want, but there are key benefits. I think of it in 5 benefits. These 5 benefits live in that sweet spot we're talking about. First, there's dramatic gains in efficiency in content generation. You can generate content within seconds. I've reduced my own design time by over 50%, and a lot of that is because of the speed of content generation. There's personalization capabilities. So if you're writing a training for a specific group of people and it needs to be adjusted for another group of people, generative AI can do that within moments. It also adds a layer of accessibility when that's needed. We have improved language accessibility for diverse audiences. Our friends here at Murf are driving us forward on this front. So not only do we have text to speech, we have text to speech, and that also gives another layer of additional accessibility. So when we're gathering our learning resources together, there's readings, videos, presentations, and sometimes when I have all of these things, it was really difficult to decide which ones move together well and which ones were at the same level of learning. Generative AI can assess all of that very quickly for us and suggest options for integration. And then lastly, assessment and entertainment. We no longer have to rely on just plain multiple choice questions or very basic short answer. We now have a whole world that we can use with generative AI. And not only can you use generative AI to give you suggestions for what to do for assessments, but we can also use it to actually test the skills and knowledge of our learners. So we're going to look through some of the common activities that instructor designers do and how AI can help. Okay, so this is where we get into the how. How do we do it, Juliann? How does this happen? So basically, we need to feed our generative AI models or large language models by giving them prompts or directions or any other sort of information you think is important for them to have. So they come to you almost as a blank slate in that it doesn't know what you're working on or anything. So you have to feed that all in. So we call that a prompt. And so to learn prompt engineering skills is really important to be able to use generative AI well. So here, this downloadable prompt sheet, you can have access to that at any time. It will walk you through how to make a good prompt so that when we're not together and you need a review, you can do that. This is a great course by Coursera on prompt engineering. It's going to teach you all the different ways that you can prompt. I've only scratched the surface on some of them, so they're great. Okay, so think of writing a prompt as having a conversation with a very capable but very literal colleague. They are going to take exactly what you say and do it. So to have a good prompt, we need to have context settings. So you don't want to just say, help me create a lesson plan. You want to say, I'm developing a lesson plan for 10th grade biology students covering cell respiration. And so you want to give it as much context as you can. And also, we want to be specific. So parameters like, who's your target audience? What are their characteristics? How long should the training be? Do the students have any prior knowledge or learners have any prior knowledge? Are there available resources? Like, can you make a video? And what are your desired outcomes? Now, when I say we have to, I want to show you what happens. Can you guys see this other screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So it's not that we won't get an answer. So if we ask generative AI, create a lesson plan for biology, it's going to give us a lesson plan, but we're going to get a lot more detail if we give it a much more advanced prompt. All right, so we can see the lesson objectives tend to be, they're similar, although the ones on the right with our advanced prompt are more detailed. We're still going to get lesson outlines, okay? But again, the one here on the right with the specific prompt is going to be much more usable very quickly. Direct instructions, again, you're still going to get information. It's just not going to be as focused as you would want. So if you put a prompt in, Gen AI is not going to stand up and say, excuse me, that's not a very good prompt. Can you do X, Y, or Z? It's going to give you an answer. So you have to think of it like that. It's always going to give you an answer. And so as much information as you can give it before it gives you an answer, the better. All right, so we are going to practice and we're going to look at how to create prompt engineering with generative AI. So a simple, well-developed prompt includes an actor. So how are they going to do, what do they need to do that performs something, and then the outcome or task that you want the information to come back at. So let's look at these insufficient prompts on the right. So I can ask, let's say ChatGPT, to make a better lesson plan, but that is really vague. Can someone put in the chat what they think a better answer would be? Instead of saying make a lesson plan, what could you add in to make that more well developed? Yeah, time length of plan, that's a good one. So make a lesson plan for a 60-minute class is a lot different than make a lesson plan for a 15-minute interaction. This also doesn't tell them what type of lesson plan. So you're going to need to say, I want a lesson plan on instructional design, or I want a lesson plan in biology. Yeah, who's the audience? I always say, you need to really tell generative AI who you're trying to reach. If you're trying to reach kindergartners, it's going to write it one way. If you're trying to reach a CEO, it's going to write it another way. So that audience is really key, making sure you have that information. Yeah, the age and the subject, awesome. I love this. Murmy said to include some sort of specifics like video. So those are all great options. All right, so we can say enhance this lesson plan by adding differentiation strategies for visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. In this situation, what I would be doing is I'd be taking a lesson plan that I already have. I'd be dumping it into ChatGPT and saying, tell me what do you think of this? All right, so let's do another one. Create an assessment question. We can say create 5 multiple choice questions, testing critical thinking, right? So without increasing difficulty. So that's really important. And then the last one, here we have, what activities should I include? Again, it's just way too broad. It's way too vague. So you want to give it some background and ask it, suggest 15-minute hands-on activities for teaching cell division to 7th graders. Again, that audience is super important. All right, so now we're going to start looking at the specific use cases for instructional designers. So one of the things, the first use case let's talk about is backward design. Most instructional designers use some sort of backward design methodology. So how can generative AI enhance this process, right? This process can be sometimes a bit cumbersome. When we look at backward design, previously we would have to go through step 1, identify the desired outcome, step 2, determine the acceptable results, and then step 3, plan resources and learning experiences. And that's all great, but that takes a lot of time, right? So if I can instead, in step 1, when I wanted to do step 1 maybe 7 years ago, I would have to go out and do a whole bunch of industry research. I'd have to have interviews with stakeholders. I'd have to look and see how people needed to perform on this task. I'd have to research what employers wanted, what the industry standards were, engage with different professional organizations. And then I'd also have to figure out what already existed. Do we have surveys? What professional development opportunities exist? And so it was really a long, arduous process. Now we say, using backward design, help me create a learning plan for blank topic, include specifics on, and then I'm giving it all the specifics. So I'm going to show you what this actually looks like. I think I'm going to show you what it looks like. All right, so let me see if I can actually.
We have a question from Adam Blake in case you want to take that. It's in the chat.
Go for it.
Yeah. He says, I have heard some people recommend asking ChatGPT to ask clarifying questions to get better outcomes. Have you found this useful or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what I'm going to show you now, I did this chat before in case I couldn't get it to pull up. So this is where this is actually the chat I had. I think this was ChatGPT. I said, using backward design, help me create a learning plan for new instructional designers, including these specifics. Now, here's the key. I actually really like to do this I say, ask me questions one at a time to reach the desired outcomes. Okay, that's great. So let me show you what that looks like in action. If I were to take that, let's put it in Claude this time. Claude's actually my favorite. Okay, it's going to start asking me questions. Are these new instructional designers? I didn't give it that information, and it's telling me that it needs that information from me. So I say, yes, new designers. Okay, then they're going to start, it's going to continue to ask those clarifying questions. So when I did this before, it asked me, what specific knowledge skills do you want these new designers to possess upon completing? And I would answer. And so you can see as it goes through, it's taking me through the steps of backward design. It's asking me, what components do they need to know about? Curating content. And it says, well, what do you mean by creating content, Juliann? Because I might think of something different. And so I have to give it that boundary and say, for me, it means finding and utilizing content that's appropriate to the task at hand. So we really have to operationally define what we mean there. And so it says, all right, but I need more now. Can you tell me, let's refine this further. What does appropriate mean? Okay, fair enough. I didn't tell it that. So I mean, difficulty level of understanding the content, how it's presented, these sorts of things. Now it says, all right, Juliann, I see where you're going, but you missed all these things. And it's telling me you didn't consider accuracy, you didn't consider relevance, you didn't consider accessibility, you didn't consider engagement. So we're going to need to do that. In addition, now we need to talk about what type of assessments. If you think about backward design, we are now in step 2, okay? Because we're already thinking about how are we going to test this out? And I'm like, I think we should be doing practice activities. And it's like, yeah, that's a great idea. And it gives me some options. Here are a few assessment ideas. And I say, let's add in some peer review. And they're like, yeah, it's always fun to have someone who cheers for you. Yes, absolutely. It gives me all kinds of ideas on how to do that peer review. Lots of times I'm like, wow, I never thought of that, or I had never seen it work that way. So then I say, okay, let's move on. I've got enough of that. And now they want to know the outcomes. Again, we're moving right through backward design. And in the end, I'm going to go through. I keep asking it, keeps asking me questions. I keep refining. And in the end, I say to it, can you write the lesson plan as one document? This whole conversation with ChatGPT took me 5 to 7 minutes. Here we have an entire lesson plan, our overview, our objectives, our materials, procedure for each week, all the assessments, any differentiations that we might have to do, any accommodation, and any reflections. So let me just show you a little tip here. Okay, so I did this in ChatGPT. Now I'm going to go to a different large language model. I'm going to go to Claude, who's actually my favorite. And I'm going to say, tell me what I might be missing in this curriculum for new instructional designers. Now I can either upload something here, but I just have it copied and pasted. There we go. Oh, I did not copy and paste it. All right, so it's there pasted, and it's automatically going to give me a review. This earlier would have taken me a long time as I brought in different SMEs, had them read through it, had conversations. This could take weeks. This could take weeks. Claude is automatically telling me, yeah, so here's some gaps, Juliann. And it's giving me all these gaps. Now, some of these gaps I don't need to worry about it. Okay, I'm not worrying about learning theory foundation. I just want them to actually be able to do the work, right? And so I can take what they have or not and move on. And then it gives me, we can just have that interaction. Now, let's say I get to industry standards and I don't actually know what industry standards are. Then I need to bring a SME in and I need to say, what do you think the industry standards are? What do you want new instructional designers to be able to do? It's important that we are able to bring in those humans as a quality assurance check, right? To be sure that what we're getting from ChatGPT is wrong. Because remember, it's going to give you an answer 100% of the time. So that answer, though, might be a bit off from what you're actually looking for. All right, so let's take a look at using it as a part. We just did some of this with thought partner and curriculum design. Lots of times we'll be designing a curriculum project, and it can serve as your collaborative partner through 4 key roles. So brainstorming, content validation, a process accelerator, a quality check, all of those things used to take lots and lots of time. So let's look at this first prompt. I need to develop a 12-week curriculum, and I'm going to stick with the instructional design process. Please help me brainstorm. And so I'm saying, I don't actually know what I want my learning objectives to be. I don't know what potential challenges students might face. So this would be a prompt that you would use right out of the gate. All right. So let's see what this looks like when we put this into ChatGPT. No, it's not going to let me do that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to have to pop out of this. All right, so let's use Gemini this time. And let's see what it gives me. It automatically starts telling me key learning objectives, technical skills. It's right there. All of these things that I can then decide what we should be doing with that assessment or not. All right, but let's then talk about sorry. If we actually refine that prompt, the results that we're going to get are a lot better. So help me create a focused and practical 12-week curriculum. Now I'm giving it timeline. Now I'm giving it sort of this guardrails for instructional designers that balances theoretical knowledge and practical skills. So I'm telling it, I need them to be able to actually do things, not just know about it in their head. And then I say, here's what I want in learning objectives. Here's what I want in a weekly structure. Here's what I want in anticipated challenge. So the more information I can get it, the more rich of an outcome I will have. So just like when we were looking at our biology prompts, right? The more detail I gave it, the more it's able to do for me. All right, so what else can Gen AI do for us? So it can generate ideas for different areas of work. So lots of times my current role, someone will say, we really need to train managers, but I don't really know what the topics can be. It can help generate those ideas. It can help us make existing connections between curriculum now and curriculum might need to be updated. It can transcribe faculty meetings or any meeting that you're in and capture any discussions that are had. So I know that Zoom has its own recording and transcribing feature now. I like to use Otter. Otter transcribes, it actually makes notes, and it even will have tell you what was important, who said what, and if it was important. Role-playing different perspectives. I don't know what it's like to be someone, to be a single mom living in Russia. So I might have to say, pretend like you're a mom living in Russia, and then tell me what you think here. I see your question, Murmy. Give me 1 second. I want to show you in our curriculum development, many times we have situations where we have one curriculum and another curriculum, and someone will say to you, which one's better? And I always think to myself, they're both good, or I wouldn't have given them to you, right? But lots of times you have to give them a very strong comparison about what's different. And if you look here, I asked ChatGPT, this may have been Claude, to look at approach 1, which was traditional development approach, and step 2, approach 2, an AI assisted developmental approach. And it actually breaks down exactly how much prep time. Okay, so prep time for this is 20 to 25 hours. Prep time for this is 10 to 12. Delivery time seems to be about the same. And so we can go through and we can go point by point and talk about which one has more potential challenges, which one has better control measures. And so it'll give us a side-by-side comparison of the curriculum so that you can continue. So Murmy asked, why is Claude my favorite? I started using generative AI. I started using ChatGPT, and that's what I used all the time. I find that Claude sounds a bit more human, and it gives me different options. So when I go to Claude, and I can tell it that I want it to be different types of language. I can tell it, I want you to use professional language. I want you to use, I forget what the different ones are. To move my screen. I can choose here. Do I want normal speech? Do I want concise speech? Do I want to explain something, formal speech? All of those things become very important. You know, if I'm trying to explain something, I'm going to need more detail versus concise. So I usually stick on normal unless I need more or less. And then I say, try again and make it concise. So for me, that's what I really like about Claude. But there's really no best one. Lots of people use ChatGPT. I still have ChatGPT open on my desktop a lot. And Gemini by Google is great. The cool thing about Gemini is that it can actually search YouTube videos. So if you're someone who likes to use YouTube videos in your training and development, you can actually tell it, find me a 5-minute video about burnout that has, you know, these parameters. And it's because it's Google and it pairs with YouTube, it can actually search through and actually spit out recommendations. That's something that Claude and ChatGPT cannot do, but Gemini can. All right, so what if we have a needs analysis? It can help us by looking at data analyzation patterns. You know, so lots of times people will say, hey, I need to know, what do my employees need to know? That's always a big one, right? So I'm just looking at new projects and new contracts now. And a lot of time people are like, well, I don't know what my employees need to know. So I've got to do this needs analysis, right? And so, but you get all this data back. It's not necessarily easy, but with ChatGPT or Gemini, it can analyze that for you really quickly. I'm going to give you, we're going to work through an example together. So this is just some raw employee technology skills assessment data. Okay, so there's Likert scales. So I'm going to be able to feed in the employee responses in the sales department, how they answered those questions, and then comments. So I'm going to bring this up here and I'm going to say, I need a needs analysis. Well, that's not very poetic. I need a need. I need a needs analysis for this set of employees, focusing on their technological skills. They should all have basic training. And then I'm just going to paste that. No, I'm not going to paste that in there. All right. So before I have a PhD in psychology. So data analysis was always a love it or hate it. You had to enter everything into the system and you had to have these complex formulas. And that's really good still if you're trying to do a specific type of data analysis. For these types of scenarios, this is awesome. It's already telling me what my overall trends are, what they see in each department. So in the sales department, we've got issues with the customer, the CRM. In our operations department, they have workflow automation issues. And so I can break down training by department and by what skills. And then I can even ask it, what was the level of frustration in with the employees. High level of frustration. So it's going to break it down very specifically for me. Adam asks, is it possible to have generative AI create onboarding new client curriculum for software based on a group of existing knowledge-based articles? Well, Adam, let's see. What happens if we take Adam's suggestion, and we're going to use Gemini for his? No real reason why. Nope. Here's how it's telling you how you can help. And then I'm going to say, okay, do it. Oh, it's still telling me how we can use it. Okay. So I'm going to say this, create. So it's showing me how to walk through it. Let's take that prompt and put it over here and see what ChatGPT gives us. One thing to note is that it remembers everything in your chat. So if you're getting results and you're like, why are you telling me that? It might be because of something that was in your previous chat. So you can always you always can click new chat. So ChatGPT is giving me an actually curriculum, 4 to 6 weeks. Here are the components. Here's what you need in every module. Here's activities. Are the outcomes being met? And so, yes, Adam, it can absolutely do that for you. Now, of course, you're going to want to put in like company parameters or anything else that you might have from like anything that might need to align with. So I know with onboarding, lots of times I have to align onboarding with the cultural expectations of the company. And so they're usually not married right away. So I have to say, okay, here's the cultural expectations of the company. They want new onboarding that also, you know, enhances their cultural expectations. And so as you can see, it's still going. And so I have, it'll do that for me instantaneously. And then I can refine it. I rarely am able to take anything straight from a large language model and put it right into a proposal. I usually have to go through, I have to ask it some more clarifying questions. I have to see what's going to work in the human world versus what might not work so well. Also, I have a global dispersed team right now. And so being able to say, how is this going to work with a global dispersed team? They can't be online at the same time. It has to be done asynchronously. It can help me think through all of those things that previously I may not have thought through until I was sitting in front of my boss and they said, well, what about the global dispersed team? Oh, yeah, right. And if I don't know about things I should consider, I can just ask it and say, what are some considerations that I might have missed? So it's going to tell you client size, company, existing proficiencies, all of these things. It's going to go through and give me everything I could possibly want to know. Okay. All right. So we are going to, if you're following along in the live version, you can actually click on these. If you're not following along, just put in the chat. When you design, do you typically use ADDIE? Do you typically use SAM? Some sort of generic backward design, or it sort of depends on the situation. And if some of you are thinking, I don't actually do any of those, feel free to put that in the chat. ADDIE, Jasmine likes ADDIE.
Julian, somebody asked in the Q&A, where does AI get the data for the needs analysis? It's an anonymous attendee. I don't know who that is.
So you have to feed it. You have to give it the information. So you can't just say, give me a needs analysis for, you know, if I said give me a needs analysis for Procter and Gamble employees, it should say to me, I can't. But here are some suggestions, because it's always going to give me an answer. All right, so it's telling me basically, how do I have to do it? and it's pulling all of this information from data it's been trained on. Procter & Gamble is a huge company here in Cincinnati. They make Snuggle, Pampers, all that kind of stuff. So it's going to have a lot of information on Procter & Gamble because people will have fed that information in previously. But if I went with a really small company that they might not know, I'm trying to think of what, now that's a little, okay, so it's going to structure it like a normal needs analysis, but it's not going to have, oh, it actually thinks it's a creek. Very literal. It's asking about wetlands and things like that. Crude's Creek is just the name of the restaurant. So like I said at the beginning, it's a very literal partner. I'm going to have to go back and say, no, I meant the restaurant. All right, so it's going to give me a needs analysis. But what you really, when you go in and so you have a job and someone says to you, I need you to do a needs analysis for me, they're probably going to give you data. And for me right now in my contract, we get something like 700 points, 700 people giving us points of data. It's almost impossible to look for trends just by looking at it. So what happens is we'll break them into sections and we'll feed those sections into a generative AI prompt, a large language model, and ask it, what do you see here in terms of training? What are people frustrated about? And we ask it to pull out information, and then we'll say, what trends do you see that I didn't talk about? And it will give us all sorts of information. Then we can go back and we can validate it with the data. We can go back and look at source data and be sure that things are aligning, but it does that all. It can do that all for you. Okay, so back to ADDIE and SAM. So we have ADDIE for instructor-led training, SAM for digital learning. ADDIE and SAM are both methodologies that instructional designers use to create their work. I guess the best way to say that. So ADDIE looks like this. So the framework. So ADDIE looks like this. It starts with an analysis phase. So we analyze what we need to do, design, develop, implement, and evaluate. I do have a downloadable prompt engineering cheat sheet for you. So you can download that to keep if you are someone who really likes ADDIE. So I was trained on ADDIE, but I have always hated ADDIE because it took too long. Now I can have ChatGPT or Gemini help me with ADDIE, and it's not taking nearly the amount of time. So if I want ADDIE to help me in the analysis phase, I just have to give it a prompt that asks it to give me some analysis on a general idea. We're seeing a 70% increase in processing speed, 60% for gap analysis, and 50% time reduction in resource planning. So, but you notice that it is giving you, hey, you should probably verify these things against raw data. You should validate findings with subject matter experts. All right. So it reminds you at every step of the way. In design, we're seeing 65% faster objective writing. I one who doesn't love to write learning objectives. It does a great job writing learning objectives, faster content structuring, faster assessment planning. We talked a little bit about assessment planning before. 75% faster first draft creation. So if you are someone who's going to have multiple iterations, that's going to happen a lot faster. 75%. 70% faster exercise development. How many of you, when you were, I'm going to show my age, but had a book that you could look through and see what kind of activities you could do for your learners? 80% faster assessment creation. So I can feed in, this is awesome for college students or any students really. My son is taking a very difficult class right now, and he's got a digital copy of his textbook. He can feed it into the large language model, copy and paste the different chapters or upload the different chapters and say, ask me questions until you're sure I know this at the level of a B student, a B graded student. And it will continually ask him questions so he can get it. There's lots and lots of materials out there for people who are wanting to use this to help their students. And you don't even have to use a large language model. One of the things that I'll show you later is Study Fetch. It's something that we use a lot for students. So implementation, 55% schedule, faster schedule planning, 65% communication development, streamlined system setup. Again, we're looking at the quality controls. And then lastly, with evaluation, when you finally get your program out there and you get it running and then people are like, well, does it work? Well, how do you answer that? I always want to say, yes, it works because I built it. And I know that this is what you need. But they really want to look at what is that data analysis. So we have a 75% efficiency gain in data analysis, 70% in feedback processing, and the ROI. This is what all businesses come down to. What is my return on investment? We see a 60% gain in creating that return, the ROI calculation. So if someone asked for that, it used to take a couple days for you to try to figure that out. You can get that to them within an hour. All right, we're briefly going to also look at SAM. SAM is the successive approximation model. This is the model I used to like more than ADDIE. Now they're sort of even for me. Basically, you start at one point and you just have successive approximations. So you try little bits of what you want until you get to the full thing. So you have an approximate idea of what your design should be, then you refine that idea, and then you implement that idea. And then you may have to go through it a couple times. So in the approximation area, AI accelerates our project foundation by 65%. We get faster prototyping, faster streamlining of information. And then again, each step here, we have some quality checks. We have 60% faster revision cycles. So if I get a project back and it says, I need this to be more hands-on and I need them to understand how to use this one technology, I can actually put that in. And then I can say, okay, what I've gotten back is that we need to make it more hands-on and that the people need to be able to use a certain technology. Maybe it's like Workday or something. All right. When that happens, I can get that revision right back right away and start interacting with that large language model to get that revision well in hand. All right, we have faster development, 40% faster development, streamlined launch preparation, enhanced performance monitoring. All of these things happen with ADDIE and SAM. And when you're using your ADDIE or your SAM, you use that prompt generation like I showed you. So you do have some cheat sheets. So for those of you who like to look, the cheat sheets look a little bit like this. So prompt engineering for instructional designers. Then you have, they're all the prompt engineering one. So let's open one. So this is the SAM cheat sheet. Okay, so prompts for SAM. And so it's going to tell you exactly what kind of prompts you need, possible pitfalls. It's going to give you actual prompts that you can think about using. And so, of course, you're going to want to make them your own, but these are good suggestions for prompts that will actually work. And then if you're not getting what you need, these are some ways that you can actually look and say, oh, I need better content. Maybe I should ask one of these questions. I need a different output. I need a different format or alignment. You can ask it all those questions. So I have both of those there for you for ADDIE and SAM and backward design. You're free to download them, have them, print them out, make them your best friend, whatever you like. Okay, so lastly, tools of the trade. Everybody asks me a lot, like, what's your favorite things to work with? Every single day when I come downstairs, I automatically put on my auto transcription. Sometimes even when I'm doing brainstorming myself, I'll use that auto transcription and it will catch all that information that I think I might want to know. Character creation, character AI is a lot of fun to use. There's maybe 100 or more, probably more at this point, characters. So you go in there and there's a mom character, there's a psychologist character, there's all kinds of characters, and you can ask it questions. So I use it a lot for my psychology students. They go in there and they ask the psychologist questions, and they actually have a back and forth conversation with this character. You also can create your own character. So you could create your very own DeBroop, and you could feed it all kinds of information about him, and then it will talk to you just like it's him. Image generation, DALL-E is great. I love their image generation. Of course, Murf is leading the way here in our text to speech. If you have not looked at their product, please do. It's fantastic. It's so great. Study Fetch we use for study help. And I put Canva in here because I use Canva every day, and perhaps you do too. And I think Adobe's probably the same way. It now has AI features built in. So I can say, I couldn't find a picture of X, Y, or Z. Can you create one for me? And it will create that image for us. Yeah, Articulate comes with AI. I have not gotten a chance to play with it because my current my current role, we don't use a lot of Articulate, but I have heard. Is it both in the Rise and in 360? So is it in all the 360? Does anybody know? Storyline and Rise. Okay. I think it'll be really great for Storyline in particular, because I think it can be cumbersome to work with. If you want to learn more, these are all different resources that I recommend, different articles, videos, these sorts of things. I'm putting in the chat right now. This is the live link to this presentation. You can reach it at any time, not just while I'm here. Feel free to look. I'll have it up there forever. You can look at it whenever you want. If you'd like to reach me or connect, I'd love for you to reach out on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You also can go to my website and learn a little bit about what I do, what my company does. And of course, we should all be following our friends at Murf AI. They've got a great LinkedIn page. I love their new newsletter that they send out. It's very informative, packed full of information, and of course, their website there.